voice hits me like a ghost from the past. Or, rather, the future.
Future me? But I haven't heard from you, since my second episode.
Never mind that. You need to review an X-Men book.
That knocked the feet out underneath me like a Liefeld character.
Oh man, but there's so many titles and years of continuity. I don't know even where to begin.
You said for 2 years that the X-Men is what got you, us, I hate time travel, into comics, but you never reviewed anything with the letter X in the title. Time for you to make a decision and pay up.
My head was spinning like the Ant-Man villain Whirlwind standing on a pottery wheel.
And stop narrating to yourself. You look like an idiot.
Okay, but why? Why is this so important?
Forget it, kid. It's just Mutant Town. Hey.
Yeah? That answer? That was stupid. You said it, kid. Suppose I did. I hate myself. Folks, welcome back. Wait. Turn on the color. It's better. Welcome back to Comics Are Awesome, where we bring you everything awesome in comics. This week, we're going to take a look at X Factor by Peter David. Okay, in terms of continuity, I purposely tend to focus in on self-contained stories, ones that you can just pick up and enjoy. Now, I do think you can pick up this book and just read it and then get a lot of enjoyment out of it, but for the sake of my OCD, let's take a look at the history of X Factor, shall we?
In the 1980s, the original 5 founding X-Men had all left the team to make room for such popular characters like Dazzler, but that just left room for franchising opportunities. So the Cyclops, Marvel, Beast, Iceman, and Angel reunited to form X Factor, a team which impersonated a mutant hunting squad in order to find and protect young mutants.
That sounds awkward.
And now for my next impression, Jesse Owens.
But that's not the X Factor we're here to look at today.
In the early 90s, X Factor rejoined the X-Men, but let it not be said that Marvel will not flog a marketable trademark, so a new team took its place. Cyclops' brother, Havoc, was asked to lead a team of mutants who would work for the government. The team consisted of Havoc's girlfriend with magnetic powers, Polaris, Quicksilver, the speedster son of Magneto, the religiously conflicted lycanthrope Wolfsbane, the wisecracking strong guy, guess what his powers are, and the immature prankster Jamie Madrox, the Multiple Man. I'll discuss him a lot more later on. This iteration of the series was initially written by Peter David.
Correct title, correct writer, but still not the X Factor we're talking about.
The 90s X Factor team is worth hunting down and is collected in trades called X Factor Visionaries, Peter David. There's a fantastic issue where the team is forced to go to a therapist, and one of the first times it showed how much thought a good writer puts into his characters. It's quiet in terms of action, but as a showcase of the characters, Peter David's humor is a great starting point. But again, it's not really necessary for the book we're looking at today. The start of the actual X Factor team we're looking at today takes place in a mini-series called Madrox.
I have no idea why people think comics are hard to get into.
The miniseries focuses in on the previously mentioned Jamie Madrox. Madrox was born with a mutant power so that whenever he struck hard, his body creates a physical duplicate. While he has pretty much average strength, he can quickly create a small army and dogpile stronger opponents down. And later, the original can reabsorb the dupes. And that's kind of it. The character was played as the group's prankster, and having dupes of himself allowed for that. But in a fight, he had one strategy.
It's raining men. Hallelujah, it's raining men. Amen. I'm gonna go out. I'm gonna let myself get absolutely soaking wet.
The Madrox miniseries had Peter David return to the character of Jamie, but with a somewhat radical new approach. Madrox, when he absorbs his duplicates, gains the knowledge of their experiences. So, not sure what to do with his life, After the disbanding of the government X Factor, Jamie does, well, literally a bit of everything. Whether studying as an Olympic-level gymnast or a Shaolin monk, the dupes went out, gained skills, knowledge, and experience, and then were reabsorbed into Madrox. With lifetimes worth of experiences available to him, he does what we all would do. Open up a detective agency.
It was that or become an internet critic. He went with a job that was less sleazy.
Setting up shop in New York's Mutant Town district along with the former teammates Strong Guy and Wolfsbane, Madrox creates X Factor investigations, which eventually leads us to X Factor number 1. And yes, that's finally the X Factor we're here to talk about. Jeez, and this is the book with less continuity dragging it down.
Joking aside, Madrox is a fantastic limited series, but one you don't really need to read to enjoy X Factor. I'm only including it for completeness sake. And the kickback I hope to get for shilling for Marvel.
Talking about this book is kind of difficult. In my rereading for this episode, I realized how much this book has changed in a nearly 7-year run since its relaunch in February of 2006. The Madrox miniseries and the early issues of X Factor were heavily inspired by crime noir. While not as bleak as some other crime stories out there, but it often does not pull punches. And yet, not every issue is like that. There are stories that are mostly straight up superhero tales, others that are more akin to soap operas and drama between the cast, and others that are best described as lighthearted romps. And certainly I think there are more of those types of stories than in its early days, but it's still unafraid of just sneaking up on you and really shocking you. As such, I'm not going to do an in-depth recap of the first story arc as I normally might, because, well, just like Multiple Man, there's plenty of variety here. But don't get me wrong, as different as the plots might be, the characters are very consistent and really are the main draw for me. And hopefully you'll understand what makes this series awesome to me, or at least you have your head filled with trivia useless outside of the Comic-Con quiz game. At the center of X Factor is Jamie Madrox, who is a sarcastic, self-deprecating guy who grew up in Kansas.
What a loser. Glad I don't know anyone like that.
Jamie is the leader and the glue for the team. He's intelligent, funny, and obsessed with crime noir. He's also kinda dumb. Don't get me wrong, he's not an idiot, but he's plagued with self-doubt. His power has given him a wealth of options, but they aren't reliable. His dupes often take on different aspects of this personality, from cowardly to smooth lady killers, and even more psychotic aspects. And Jamie never knows what dupe he's gonna get. It's somewhat implied that his dupes match his mindset. When he's really focused, he can get them to work as a cohesive whole, but most of the time, what kind of personality he get is a bit of an X factor.
Eh? See what I did there? Eh? Eh?
The first two people who joined up with Jamie were Strong Guy and Wolfsbane. Guido Strong Guy Carosella is a former bouncer for the mutant Layla Cheney, who would use her ability to teleport across the galaxy to perform a rock concert for aliens.
This is a thing. This is an actual thing that happened in comics.
Guido is a fascinatingly complex person. He's huge and intimidating looking, but he almost always will joke around to put you at ease. His powers that let him absorb kinetic energy and create muscle mass leaves him in frequent pain, but he's also generally a sweet and well-meaning guy. Hell, despite being a mutant and all the prejudices that come with that, he gets uncomfortable when he realizes one of his teammates is in a gay relationship. I could spend an entire video just talking about all the facets of his character, but needless to say, it's probably best you don't dismiss him as just the team's muscle. Rain, Wolfsbane Sinclair equally defies easy labels. Growing up in Scotland, her abusive father, Reverend Craig, thought her mutant ability of lycanthropy was a sign of the devil and nearly had her killed. As such, she has kind of adopted two separate natures. Rain in her human form is often more passive, good-natured, though prone to fall back on the judgmental aspects of her religious upbringing, though when she's Wolfsbane in her wolf form, she can often become more aggressive. Many of her stories center around her trying to find the right balance between her dual natures. Sometime between the Madrox miniseries and X Factor, Siren and M joined as well. Teresa Siren Cassidy is the daughter of the X-Man Banshee. She's inherited her father's ability to create sonic screams, and also managed to further refine her mastery of sound, including making her voice have a hypnotic appeal to it, making her more like her alias's namesake. Siren is kind of the closest the team has to a mom figure, but more like a mom imported from Mad Men than I Love Lucy. Teresa is often the most level-headed member of the group. She's also a recovering alcoholic and has a trouble facing reality. When Cyclops meets with Teresa to tell her that her father died in an X-Men related mission, her reaction is shockingly blasé. Rather than despair, she's convinced that his death has been faked, or even if he did die, he'll eventually come back. And in a superhero world where that kind of thing is fairly common, it's hardly surprising that someone would fall to that level of denial. Don't get me wrong, it's still an unhealthy way to cope, but not one I can say I'm surprised to hear.
Okay, welcome to Grief Counseling. I'm JD. I'm just going to go over a few questions before we get started. Who's here for the first time tonight? Nobody. Okay, that's fine. And who here, since our last meeting, had the person they were grieving for come back to life? Okay, that's about a third of you. That's a bit down, but that's okay. And, who here is mainly coming for the donuts and coffee that we provide? Oh, all of you. Dibs on the jelly.
Meanwhile, Monet St. Croix, or better simply known as M, is bitchy, self-centered, petty, and an all-around prima donna. And she's perfect. And I'm not kidding either. Her list of powers look like someone activated a cheat code. Strength, agility, resistance, healing, increased intelligence, enhanced senses, flight, and telepathy. Oh, and she's wicked hot too. And painfully aware of it. But, like all the characters here, she's more than just stats on a page. Yes, she's bitchy, but she has feelings too. Her brother is a supervillain who kept her captive and fed off her to keep himself alive. She purposely keeps people at arm's length because she has trouble letting them get close. Every once in a while, you see a chink in the armor, and you realize she's not as bad as she comes across. And then she will threaten you with bodily harm if you breathe a word about it. Please don't show her this video. One of the two people who joined the team in the first story arc is Julio Richter, though he mostly goes around by Richter. Richter is a former mutant who lost his powers after the events of House of M.
House of M was a thing. Scarlet Witch went crazy, most mutants lost their powers. Let's just keep moving, shall we?
Richter used to be able to create earthquakes. Why he spells his codename Richter when his birth name is the same name as the scale used to measure earthquakes is a mystery lost to the ages. Anyways, Richter takes his depowering well, as evidenced by him standing on this ledge of a very tall building.
Mortal man, robbed of a defining part of his life, standing on the ledge of a rooftop. Richter is Batman!
Well, no. Now that the ground no longer listens to his command, he's considering reuniting with it in a very sudden and final fashion. Jamie sends a dupe to talk Richter down, and it nearly worked up until the point where the dupe revealed that it was the embodiment of Jamie's randomness and chose to throw Richter over the ledge. Don't worry, it's New York Marvel. There's always a few people flying or swinging around to save people from the cruel mistress of gravity. Richter ends up joining the team and kind of becomes the more grounded presence. With the book being set in what was once a thriving mutant district of New York and now a place for the disenfranchised former mutants, he represents a reminder of what many have lost. He's certainly not the strongest or smartest or even the most clever person on the team, but in many ways he represents the people that X-Factor helped. Then we reach the last person, and quite possibly my favorite member of X-Factor. Meet Layla Miller. She knows stuff. Layla technically premiered in the House of M event as a walking Deus Ex Machina, but really that version has very little to do with the one that we meet here. Layla is a young teen who just shows up one day, starts taking calls, and telling people what will happen or where they need to go, or what they need to do. Whenever asked, she just claims to know stuff. While the exact nature of her powers and knowledge is hinted at and finally revealed over a great number of issues, so I won't spoil it, but basically she has knowledge of things that will happen and she uses it to her advantage. These often play out in a Rube Goldbergian fashion, like when Layla calls 4 pizza trucks to the same intersection to cause an accident, letting her free a kidnapped victim from the back of a bad guy's van while they're stuck waiting for the traffic to move. Normally, Layla is pretty upbeat. Her sense of humor is actually pretty compatible with Jamie's brand of smartassery, and she's pretty bright even when her knowledge of stuff doesn't really cover everything. But she's got a bit of a dark edge too. When a contract killer is sent to deal with Richter, Layla is there, waiting for him. She tells the man that she's the one he wants, and he approaches with a knife brandished. Water pours from the ceiling from the bathtub Layla plugged up, and the lighting fixture that she removed screws from falls to the ground, and the would-be killer is electrocuted. In his last moments, he hears Layla say to him, "As for you, your heart will give out in about 5 seconds. Your mother will mourn you, but your wife won't."
Who are you?
I'm Layla Miller. I know stuff.
Yeah, and you people wonder why I'm afraid of girls.
While there are other characters that join up later, including but not limited to Longshot, Shatterstar, and Darwin, but this review is already running long, and in a lot of ways this initial cast remained the core of the team for most of the series, and even if they leave, their presence still lingers and has importance.
Okay, I hope you guys got a feel for the characters, but what about the stories?
While, as I said earlier, they run a huge gamut, the first 12 issues are pretty rooted in crime noir. Well, it's not the darkest stuff I've read, but yeah, the series opens with Richter's contemplating suicide, and not too much later, Siren suffers a rather brutal physical and psychological torture from an insane former mutant trying to figure out how she kept her powers. It's a disturbing issue, and even though the series would eventually drift away from using the heavy shadowing and direct noir riffs, that issue is not even the darkest the series would get. But we also get relatively straight superhero adventure stories, fighting colorful villains, or character-driven issues with soap opera elements. Hell, some stories are a combination of the three. In a lot of ways, the tones of the stories are very dynamic and prone to change. A kind of unknowable element added to each different chapter. A kind of X factor, if you will.
Did you see what I did?
No, I didn't.
I'm sorry. Wait. Why are you watching a visual medium that's about another visual medium?
I thought you were that jerk guy who talks about Disneyland.
I can only wish.
Despite all the variance in the stories, the core of the book feels solid and consistent. This is because of Peter David's voice. There's usually a dry wit to his stories, though he's not at all afraid of using a gut-busting guffaw or just plain gut-punching. The art for the series has been a bit of a mixed bag, with some fantastic people in the book and some people whose art just failed to click for me. But Leonard Kirk, who you may remember in my Captain Britain review, has been doing recent issues, which is definitely a good thing in my opinion.
This comic has a lot going on for it. A lot of variety, and is worth hunting down. If you're going to try it out, I recommend the trades over the individual issues, because it jumps from issue to 50 to 200, and that can confuse some folks, while the trades are easily numbered. But either way, it's worth getting. If you want to get into the X-Men, but don't want to have to deal with all the continuity, this is a great place to start. So remember, comics are awesome, and we're going to get the word out.
I walked away with heavy footsteps and a heavier heart. The review was over, but nothing really ends. Would the world read the comic, or would they just let it slip through their fingers like sand?
I said, stop narrating.
Track through the night and I stalk over the roofs, and I'm searching in an office as I'm trying to find the truth. And I come face to face with a man that's my double, but he doesn't know I'm there, and so he never felt the shovel. And the single blow created another me. I explained the story and we tied Prime up through his recovery. Now he's just a prisoner, we take turns watching him, using all the skills and abilities that we got from him. Multiple man, a man no more. Now he's just another prisoner of life's damn war. And I'm free from this inner fear I felt after it's done. And now I just absorb 40, you can call me number one. Geek Vision.